Welcome, everyone, to the L Nutra Longevity Lab series, where science meets strategy for a longer and healthier life. I'm Renee Fitton, your host and longevity dietitian and director of education at L Nutra. Every episode, we explore the latest research, expert insights, and practical tools to help you harness the power of fasting, nutrition, and longevity science. Whether you're new to wellness or you're looking to expand your expertise, we're here to empower you with knowledge that supports vibrant and lasting health. I am very excited to introduce our speaker today, Dr. Michael Klaper. He is a physician, educator, and thought leader with over 50 years of clinical experience helping patients regain their health through improved diet and lifestyle. He is the director of Moving Medicine Forward, a global initiative educating medical students and clinicians on the power of nutrition and lifestyle for chronic disease reversal, and an avid supporter of plant-based medicine and sustainability. So as you can imagine, a perfect guest for today's topic, which is the power of plant-based medicine and the way that this can impact a sustainable health and sustainable planet. So without further ado, Dr. Klaper, it is such an honor to have you here. To start us off, can you share a little bit about your personal and professional journey that brought you to this work and what sparked your passion for using nutrition as this foundation for healing?
Oh my, well, thank you, first of all, for the invitation. It's wonderful you're doing this work in this very important field to educate the public about these crucial issues. As for me, I'm a classically trained Western physician. I graduated from the University of Illinois College of Medicine in Chicago, and I thought I was going to be a regular blood and guts emergency doctor and primary care physician my whole career. But a number of events happened along the way, as life tends to throw at us, and that changed my viewing of medicine and my work on this planet. The majority of people that most primary care physicians spend their time treating have some common characteristics here in the 21st century, unlike in decades past where infectious diseases, diphtheria, scarlet fever were the big problems. Now these are largely self-inflicted lifestyle diseases: obesity, diabetes, high blood pressure, clogged arteries, and a host of inflammatory diseases affecting every organ system, from lungs to gut to joints to immune system. As I tell the residents and medical students, welcome to medicine in the 21st century. And where most doctors resign themselves to just suppressing and managing symptoms, to suppress the inflammation in the joints, to lower the cholesterol levels in the bloodstream. But nobody's really talking about reversing these diseases because that's not the message we get. In medical school, we get the opposite message, that these are irreversible diseases. Atherosclerotic plaque clogging the artery, as the phrase is, relentlessly progressive. And high blood pressure, the adage is this is lifetime medication. Nobody gets off high blood pressure pills. And if you have diabetes, especially type 2, the message you get is once on insulin, always on insulin. Nobody gets off insulin. Well, the good news is, as we have seen the power of plant-based nutrition to reverse these diseases, because most of these conditions really are caused by the standard Western diet. The reality is now that people who eat the diet currently based on meats and dairy products and processed foods, heavy with sugar and salt and oil, every 4 hours, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, they run this deluge of sugar and salt and, as I said, animal protein and dairy fats and salt and sugar through their circulatory system, through every cell in their body. In my writings, I've come to call it the red tide that flushes through our systems. And it does cause these diseases. This is a pro-inflammatory diet, and it prompts the inflammation in all these tissues. And the inflammation sets off the clogging of the arteries, the swollen joints, the intestinal problems. Well, if you stop hitting yourself in the head with a hammer, the headaches go away, and the same thing if you stop doing that kind of nutritional assault and instead honor the reality that by anatomy and physiology, we're plant-eating humanids. We don't have big gaping jaws with dagger-like canine teeth and claws on our forearms like the mountain lions do. We have small mouths and flat grinding molar teeth and jaw joints that permit chewing in a rotary motion and long intestines for digesting fiber. And if you need a further clue from the universe, in our saliva, the digestive enzymes that we have are starch digesting enzymes. We have amylase in our saliva for digesting starches. If that's not a big clue about what we're supposed to be eating, I think we should certainly heed that anatomical and physiologic warning. And when people go to a diet based on whole plant food, just a steady stream of salads and soups and steamed veggies and curries and chilies and hearty vegetable soups and stews, the kind that we served at True North Health Center, which I'll mention in a minute. These diseases, they largely melt away and the arteries dilate and the high blood pressure comes down and the joints stop hurting and the skin clears up and 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 people turn into normal, healthy people, human beings. And the obesity melts away, just month after month. The the beauty of a whole food plant-based diet is that Mother Nature, in her wisdom, created fruits and vegetables largely out of fiber and water. That's what broccoli is. That's what lettuce is. And so you're filling your tummy up with fiber and water, and it doesn't stick to you. And I tell my patients, if you go back for a third bowl of vegetable soup, who cares? It really doesn't matter. It's going to pass right through you. And so it's guilt-free eating. There's no calorie counting or carb counting. And midway in my career, I was privileged to join the attending staff at True North Health Center in Santa Rosa, California. It's an inpatient facility where people come and they stay for weeks at a time with their chronic medical problems, the clogged arteries, the high blood pressure, the inflamed joints. And many of them do a supervised water fast, which we'll talk about in a minute. But after the water fast, as I say, the fast is very nice, has these wonderful anti-inflammatory effects. But what matters is what you eat after the fast. It's the food stream day after day pouring through your tissues that really causes the disease reversal and does the nutritional magic, if you will. And so I took my experience from True North, and now I use it as the foundation of my treatment of pretty much all my patients, because we're all basically suffering from the same disease. So a long-winded answer there, but in fact, now I'm spending my time going to the medical schools because I'm thinking of somebody should tell the medical students this. If somebody should, and a little voice on my shoulder says, "How about you, Doc?" And so for the past 4 years, as part of our Moving Medicine Forward nonprofit organization, I've been going to the nation's medical schools and giving the young medical students and the residents the lecture I wish somebody had given me 50 years ago. It would have changed the course of my medical career to show them that one, these are nutrition-based diseases, and that they are reversible, and that a whole food plant-based diet is the key to the reversal. So, I would like to get a whole generation of physicians aware of the power of plant-based nutrition and the effects of water fasting. And if that happens, it'll be a whole new era of health on the planet, certainly in our country. So again, long answer, but those are the basic elements of why you and I are having this conversation today.
Absolutely. Well, a phenomenal answer and very important to go into these details because you have such an incredible background and history that got you to where you are today. And it is that experience that gives you all of this strength in knowing that, everything that you're sharing is truly along the right path and making the difference in the right way. I did want to just quickly jump on. I mean, I love so many of the things that you shared there, the clues from the universe and just how our body is designed to live off of plant-based nutrition. It is such a beautiful visual to think about how Mother Nature has set up our bodies in this way to eat in this way, and to just listen to that and to see that in just the way that our bodies are designed is such a cool thing. But the one thing that I wanted to ask, just on top of all of that, is why do you think that disease reversal in chronic disease has been so staunchly pushed against? And I hear it from some of the big names in, I'm not going to name any of the names, but some of the organizations that lead, heart health and diabetes care, et cetera, are so staunchly against reversal and even remission within their disease states. And why do you think that is?
Oh my, again, such a powerful question, and like everything else, there's probably a multi-layered answer here. But strictly from science, and the defect is in medical education. The medical students are not taught this. It never enters the conversation in pathology class. This is what atherosclerosis looks like under the microscope, and it's from genetically high cholesterol levels. And the only thing you can do is pound down those cholesterol levels by poisoning, if you will, the enzymes in the liver that create cholesterol, and hope that your patient doesn't have their stroke or heart attack when you're on call. Sorry for the cynical note, but in a way, that's kind of the message given. And you're there just to ward off the worst catastrophes, and that's been equated with good medicine. And so the students are not equipped; they're unleashed upon the unsuspecting public, woefully unequipped to help these people regain their health on the deepest level. Um, and so why does this happen? Well, again, there's little incentive to revise the textbooks, and sorry to get a little cynical and bordering on political here, but we can't ignore the fact that there are industries that have huge input into medical education. The pharmaceutical industries go a long way to providing educational materials. And when it comes to nutrition, which is looked at as peripheral, it's a sissy science. I tell the medical residents that, send them to the dietitian. You're told, she'll give them a diet. Don't worry. I'm up in the operating room doing real medicine. But what are you doing up in that operating room, doctor? You're dealing with the infections and the infarctions and the amputations from what your patients are eating. You're all dealing with nutrition-based diseases. But again, it's certainly it's not taught in the schools. And to say that a plant-based diet would reverse these diseases obviously flies in the face of interest in the meat and dairy industries, Department of Agriculture. It was so disheartening to realize that when the nutrition guidelines for Americans are revised every 5 years, the nutritional scientists from a select group of nutrition experts put in their input, and many of them are very pro-plant-based, but their recommendations now have to pass through a committee made of industry and the egg industry and the meat industry and the dairy industry. They look at those guidelines. Oh no, well, maybe we should reduce some saturated fats in our recommendation. That's because they don't want their golden goose to get to be left out in the cold there, or whatever the metaphor might be. So there's a great inertia to keep things as they are. And like if you don't tell the medical students, then they won't ask about it. And that's so cynical. And in my slide presentation to the students and the residents, at the end, after I show them how reversible these diseases are, how arteries can unclog, and how diabetes, type 2 diabetes, will clear out on a plant-based diet, my slide at the end says, knowing how reversible these diseases are on a whole food plant-based diet, you want to heal these patients, or you just want to manage their chronic disease. If you're just going to manage their diabetes, or manage your high blood pressure, you'll leave medicine. It's a dismal way to practice medicine, and all your patients are going to become fatter and sicker and have their strokes and heart attacks. That's what drove me out of conventional medicine, because all my patients were getting sicker despite my nights in the emergency room trying to bail them out of their desperate medical straits. So, so it's a matter of that question. If doctors truly want to heal their patients, then we've got to get honest and real about why they are sitting in front of us in the office in these bodies, overweight, diabetic, hypertensive, atherosclerotic, and inflamed. From what they're eating, doctor, it's the food. It's the food. And I have a T-shirt saying it's the food. It's been the food all along, and that's ultimately the truth of it. And again, there's lots of interest that don't want us to recognize that truth. But they say you can't keep a hat pin in a cloth bag for very long. The point comes out. And the same thing, this truth has to come out. And we're trying to get the message into the heads of these young medical students, but it's burgeoning all over. It's hard to open a medical journal these days without seeing some article on the ability of plant-based diets to reverse diabetes, plant-based diets to and autoimmune disease. So it's happening. We just need it to happen faster and faster. And so interviews like this are actually key. We've got enough science. It's education at this point. It's educating the doctors, educating the public to demand this, and not take disease management as acceptable. And I tell my patients, ask your doctor, how can we reverse my high blood pressure? Can we reverse my diabetes? And insist that that's the goal of treatment. And if enough patients ask that of their doctors, then we'll start seeing some real progress.
Absolutely. So it's really everybody's responsibility, patient, physicians,
Absolutely.
and everyone in between to be supporting this mission along the way. That's what I'm hearing. And I
Well,
will say, we're very lucky to partner with organizations that are in the medical community that are promoting this. And as you mentioned, there are more and more of these where we work with the American College of Lifestyle Medicine. They published about the ability to put type 2 diabetes into remission through nutrition. And in fact, they even in that paper list fasting and fasting mimicking diets as part of the reason why we are finally aware of this ability to put disease and chronic disease into remission. So we're getting there, but it certainly is. It's still slower than we want it to be. And so absolutely, we're going to keep moving the needle. But on that note, tell us more about your nonprofit, Moving Medicine Forward. You shared a little bit about it, but what inspired it and how are you specifically working to shift the next generation of healthcare providers towards these nutrition first approaches?
thank you for asking. Um, when knowledge and information is so powerful, they say you can't unring the bell once you hear it. And as I show these slides to the medical students and the residents, they say once you look behind the curtain, you can't pretend you don't know what's behind the curtain. And I'm trying to tear that curtain down, that these are reversible diseases and this is how it works. This is not California woo-woo stuff. This is hard science. These are reversible diseases. And in 2018, I started going to the medical schools. I was living in airports and hotels and medical schools. And then along comes COVID in 2020. And kind of as a left-handed gift from the COVID virus, it forced us to go online. And as a result, I've been giving my presentations to medical schools around the world and certainly across North America. And we don't get paid for it. That costs us money to do this, but it's the most important thing that I can do with my remaining years here. The students need to hear an experienced, seasoned physician standing up and telling them that these are reversible diseases and you have the most powerful tool that you'll ever wield as a clinician to help your patients really regain their health. And they want to hear this message. They're very open to it. And so we have expenses, so we formed a nonprofit. If people are interested, go to our website, movingmedforward.org, and you can see exactly what we're doing and how you can help us. And we have a panel on the movingmedforward.org website that it says that if you know a medical student or someone who's on the faculty of a medical school and you think they need to hear this lecture and some follow-up information, please give us their name and we'll contact them. And as you mentioned, the American College of Lifestyle Medicine has been a real ally. I'm a diplomate of the American College of Lifestyle Medicine, and they're very supportive to plant-based nutrition to reverse these diseases. And the ACLM, Lifestyle Medicine Organization, has what's called LMIGs, LMIG, Lifestyle Medicine Interest Groups, in various hospitals and clinics around the country. And these are composed of medical students and residents who, though they're still in training, they see the importance of lifestyle medicine, and they want to incorporate it into the fabric of their medical practice, which we're all in favor of. So that gives us an entree. People say, well, how do you deal with the administration of the medical schools and all that? And we don't, because whenever I give the talk in person, which we still do a lot of, we're doing a West Coast speaking tour in the fall, there's always a professor in the back of the room with their arms folded, tut-tutting with his body language there. And so there's still resistance because this is a threatening message to the medical establishment. It threatens their understanding of disease, that is the food. They think it's all genetics. It's certainly threatening to their construct of the practice of medicine. We say, get the dietitian. She should not, don't hold her at arm's length. She belongs on the primary care treatment team. And I tell the residents and the students that I want to give them, and I have a slide, there's a new model of medical practice. When you're in your clinic, you're out in your own family practice, absolutely be a good physician. When you have a new patient, take a medical history, do a physical exam, order your labs, establish a diagnosis, get them on medications if you need to. No one's saying don't do that. But say before the patient leaves, you lean across the desk or into the telemedicine camera and say, before you go, I want you to contact Miss Wilson in room 422. She's the plant strong dietitian. She's going to talk to you about what to eat. She's going to give you handouts. She's going to show you videos. She may meet you at the store, take you shopping. You eat like she's telling you for a month. You come back and see me in a month. Let's see if you're not leaner and healthier. We'll talk about getting you off some of these medications. But the dietitian belongs on the primary care treatment team. Well, that's true, but that too is threatening to the medical establishment. And of course, it threatens them financially. If people clear out their own arteries, they're going to need fewer stents and fewer bypasses, and it's going to change a lot of medicine. But so what? We used to do lots of things that have fallen away. We used to harpoon whales and do all sorts of things that make us say, good heavens, I can't believe we used to do that. Well, not talking about the patient's diet needs to be one of those as well. So Moving Medicine Forward is trying to make all these changes happen, and we go right to the medical students. We go right to the LMIGs. We do an end run around the administration. They'll deal with the truth as it encroaches upon their lives. But we go right to the students. They're welcome. They're welcoming for the message, and it's the most exciting chapter of my medical career.
That is so incredible. And let me just say, I think we can absolutely afford to lose a few patients or stints with the current state of chronic disease today. So, I mean, even with that terrible argument on that side of the thing, it's we really do need to make a change because our healthcare system cannot sustain the weight of what we have put it under so far. So we need to change. And I'm sure that a lot of people listening today would agree with that. I have to ask, and first let me just reiterate that is movingmedforward.org. If you are interested in getting involved, supporting, please do check that out. And I'm so curious. I heard you say that you jump in and you do this lecture and it perks the ears, right? Is one lecture enough? I mean, we hear it all the time. There's not enough nutrition education in medical care. Like what do we need? Is, of course, any step in the right direction is a good step, but what do you think like the gold standard would be?
Oh my. Well, here's my vision for the gold standard. Thank you for that well-phrased question, because you're right. The students get all lit up, but if no one mentions it again, the enthusiasm decreases and they get involved in their standard medical education. And so what can we do to keep the flames burning brightly there? And so we stay in touch with the LMIGs, with the lifestyle medicine interest groups, and we do Q&As. We're trying to do a monthly check-in with the students, do a monthly Q&A or controversies in nutritional medicine, or we bring in controversial speakers, show videos. There's lots of activities that can, keep the interest up. Um, but the gold standard would be, and again, if you'll permit me a slightly longer answer, the uh, one thing I run into is this mechanism. I gave a lecture at University of Washington in Seattle, and afterwards a surgeon came down and said, That's all very nice, doctor, but the National Board of Medical Examiners never asked questions about nutrition. And until they start asking questions about nutrition on the board exams, we're not going to be teaching this. The medical curriculum is so jam-packed already. The students have to learn so much. There's just no room to put in nutrition education. And they'll say, what should we drop out if we want to plug in a nutrition course? Or should we not teach them pathology? Should we not teach them pharmacology? Kind of a cynical answer. Well, the reality, the golden vision is, you don't have to omit any of the conventional courses. Nutrition is so important, and it involves every aspect of health, human physiology. It should be woven into every course. In anatomy, first year, you take anatomy and physiology and biochemistry. We'll study the anatomy of the digestive system and really focus on the physiology of how the digestive system turns food into energy, and the biochemistry will complement that as far as how the high energy compounds get synthesized. Second year medicine is medical school is courses like pathology of study of disease development, as well as pharmacology, how to use medications. Well, nutrition should be certainly part of pathology. These are all nutrition-based diseases. How does the patient's diet affect everything from atherosclerosis to autoimmune disease? But pharmacology, obese patients respond different to different medications, and so it should be woven into certainly every course in the first 2 years of basic sciences in medical school. And then the last 2 years, when the student rotates through the various clinical rotations, obstetrics, pediatrics, internal medicine, well, surely on every one of those clinical specialties, on obstetrics, what a woman eats during pregnancy. If she eats the standard American diet, she's setting herself up for obesity and gestational diabetes, and they'll need more cesarean sections, et cetera. Pediatrics, atherosclerosis is a pediatric disease. It starts in childhood. We really have to talk about what the kids are eating and how to get them to eating healthier. And certainly in internal medicine and surgery, they're all dealing with nutrition-based diseases, from high blood pressure, diabetes, diverticulosis, all of them. It should be woven into every aspect of medical education. So you don't have to omit any of these courses. It should be part and parcel of the entire medical education process. So when that student finally walks across that stage of graduation and they hand him or her that diploma and say, "Congratulations, doctor," that young physician has a clear idea of what their patients have been eating is the main driving force about the diseases they're going to be seeing for their career, and how hopeful it is that they can actually reverse these diseases with the patient's help. So it's a vision of medicine that's exciting and hopeful, and it's doable, the and there's no expense involved. Yes, you have to rewrite the curriculum, but in the real world, it doesn't cost anything to order the bean chili instead of the beef chili. There's no great sacrifice involved. So we just need to shift our focus and put this new vision into the heads and hearts of our young physicians, and not just the physicians, the dentists, the nurses, the dietitians, the podiatrists, all of them, they're all dealing with nutrition-based disease, physical therapists, occupational, they all need this understanding. So all are welcome to our educational efforts.
That is fantastic. And thank you for providing not just the problem, but also the solution, because I think in our world today, that's what we need. We need solutions to all of the big problems that we face. And it's so great to hear a clear solution and path ahead. So with that being said, I'm going to ask you a question that I get asked these types of questions a lot, and I hate it because it feels like you can only answer one thing to a very big question, but I'm still going to ask it anyway. What would you say is the most important thing that you believe every physician and every person interested in health should understand about plant-based nutrition and its role in chronic disease?
We need to understand, as we said earlier, we are basically, by anatomy and physiology, plant-eating hominids like our gorilla cousins, and to eat a flesh-based diet is a violation of natural law. And the diseases that we then unleash from eating flesh and dairy secretions are the inevitable the consequence of this violation. And restoring the food stream to what it should have been all along is the key to reversing these diseases. And so these reversible diseases and a plant-based diet is the key to that reversal, and make it joyful and delicious.
I love that. So on a slightly adjusted note, I want to talk a little bit about your time at the True North Center. Of course, at El Nutra, we're big believers in fasting, and specifically the fasting mimicking diet. At the True North Center, you were sharing and guiding patients through fasting protocols. So can you share a little bit about how you see fasting working with an everyday plant-based program?
Absolutely. So if people aren't aware, do a search on True North Health Center in Santa Rosa, California. And the director and the creator of True North, Dr. Alan Goldhammer, and I have been friends for decades. And he says, "Yeah, we want you to join the staff." So eventually I did. And when I first came there in 2009, I really didn't know much about fasting. I knew they did their fasting-based center, but I didn't know much about it. Well, you get thrown into the pool, and you have to learn it on the job training. And so I spent the first week reading about the physiology of fasting. What happens to the body when you stop that steady stream of carbohydrates and fats coming in? And the remarkable changes that the body undergoes. It filled me with awe to understand the wisdom. As no more calories are coming in, the the body has no choice. It has to turn on to find what stored energy is already in the body, the fat stores and various cellular debris that can be thrown into the metabolic furnace. And it's almost like there's this divine strategy in the cells with the message going out to all the cells in the body, look, there's we're suddenly short on incoming energy here. So don't waste any energy on cellular functions and tissue functions that aren't absolutely necessary. And by that we mean um, the functions like inflammation. It's a powerful state, but if you're starving to death, man, why spend precious calories on generating heat and swelling in your joints? And the body knows to turn that off. And during the fast, inflammation in every tissue in the body just dials right down. It's really remarkable. And we see this in rheumatoid arthritis. We see it in the lupus patients. So the anti-inflammatory effect is very powerful. The uh, with the uh, fats, the type 2 diabetes is largely driven by the fats in this that have been deposited in the cells from this high fat diet that are clogging up the insulin receptors. So insulin doesn't work well. Well, during the fast, those fats that are already in the cells are burned for energy. And so the insulin receptors open up. And so after the fast, the person is often very capable of burning the glucose that they're eating in a healthy diet, and they find that they're no longer diabetic. Uh, and um, and even cancer cells, if you're starving to death, why waste precious stored calories on running a cancer? And we see that has been well documented that the fasting state has a profound anti-cancer property to it. We have seen lymphomas melt away on a long water fast. And we're now learning that even a brief fast, even a fast mimicking diet, which we can talk about, um, is a very powerful adjunct to cancer chemotherapy. It makes cancer chemotherapy work better. In fact, I tell my cancer patients, especially ladies with breast cancer, I say if you are if you are when you leave True North here, if in the future you are booked for say intravenous chemotherapy for your breast cancer, don't mention it to the oncologist. They don't know what to do with it. But between go in on day 2 or 3 of a water fast and not only are you going to get a much better effect, not only from the chemotherapy, but radiation therapy is more effective. And But also you'll have fewer side effects, so less nausea, less vomiting, less fatigue. So it's a useful adjunct in so many conditions. It's just remarkable. The body has this wisdom, and there's a world of discoveries yet still to be made on that level. And Dr. Walter Longo and others have really led the way. He's given us all confidence to have a scientist of his caliber saying, yes, these are valid mechanisms that we should not only understand but utilize in our patient care.
Absolutely. I mean, certainly at El Nutro, we are cheering that message on. It is, with Volter being the founder and creator of these systems, the researcher behind fasting mimicking diet, along with now over 30 of the top research institutions, you're really just starting to pave the way in getting more and more research here, which is so exciting. I mean, just with fasting mimicking alone, we now have over 40 clinical trials that are supporting, so as you mentioned, so many different health, from healthy individuals to various condition types, so much research there. And then you tack on all of the water fasting research. I mean, there's so much out there to be uncovered, and I would urge everybody listening to, whatever is piquing your interest, go type that in to PubMed or whatever your favorite scholarly search tool is, and go uncover what the research is showing, because it truly is quite wide spanning in its impact, because fasting works at the cellular level and it allows our body to just do so much. And we're really kind of stepping out of the way and letting our body do what it knows how to do best, which is really focus its energy on what it needs to do when given the time. So I could not agree more. Okay, now this second major concept of our chat today was on sustainability. And I would say, I think a lot of people would agree that this conversation is more urgent now than ever. And so, can you talk a little bit about sustainability, why it's so important, and what, from your perspective, what do you think the recommendations for lifestyle would be to support sustainability?
If we're talking about sustainability of the life-sustaining processes on planet Earth, food and
Yes.
water and air, if you're talking about that, we have to recognize that my generation grew up, and the mythos continues today that the all-American diet, a big old steak on the for dinner, and Coke and French fries or whatever, but it's a meat-centered diet, and that's what we ought to be eating. But that's an artifact of this uh, stunning prosperity that we in North America enjoy. The reality is that such a diet is the driving force behind every one of the major environmental threats that we are facing on planet Earth today. 500 years ago, before the Europeans colonists came to North America, there were 6 trillion trees on planet Earth. In the past 500 years, a blink of an eye, geologically, we have cut down half of those trees. We've cut down 3 trillion trees on planet Earth. Excuse me. Um, and why did we cut them down? Not to build log cabins and 2x4s. We cleared that land to grow crops, to provide grazing land, to feed hundreds of millions of cows and other grazing animals, as well as turn the forest of Minnesota, Illinois, into vast fields of feed corn and soybeans to shovel down the gullets of all these hundreds of millions, these billions actually, of living animals that we kill every year or so to eat their flesh, which we do not need and causes disease in our bodies. And it's the meat-based diet is what's driving the deforestation, even of the Amazon. They clear the forest, rainforest, and they graze cattle on it, and they grow soybeans, not for tofu and tempeh, but as animal fodder. I tell my friends who are unaware, you drive through Kansas and you see all of them, miles and miles of corn. That corn's not going into tortillas and popcorn. That's animal feed. They're growing cheap cheeseburgers, all government subsidized through our taxes. Uh, and and so it's driving the deforestation, but it's where we're sucking up the water in the rivers and out of the aquifers, and they're running dry. The Colorado River is dry. And again, it's not so the people in Phoenix can have something to drink. That's the least of the problem. That water is going to grow alfalfa in the desert for animal fodder. The soils are being poisoned with pesticides and herbicides that find their way into our food. Every rainstorm, millions of tons of topsoil, precious topsoil, washes off, erodes off the farmers' fields into the rivers. The rivers are running with silt. And they're running full of fertilizers, nitrogen fertilizers that work their way down to the oceans and foster these huge algae blooms that suck the oxygen out of the ocean water, creating these huge dead zones. Um, Pick a environmental disaster and global warming. The carbon dioxide is increasing because we're cutting down the trees, and none of this has to be happening. The key, of course, is if everybody switched to a plant-based diet, it is so much more efficient to use land to grow corn and beans and potatoes and fruits and vegetables to feed to humans directly than to grow corn and soybeans to shovel into the gullets of animals that turn most of that energy into manure and body heat and horns and hair and blood and bones and things that people don't eat. It's so wasteful to grow animals that if everyone went vegan overnight, it would free up a land area the size of Africa.
Wow.
And we would only need a quarter of that to grow enough corn and beans, potatoes and fruits and vegetables to feed everyone on planet Earth. All 10 billion of us, it would end world hunger. Well, what would happen to all the rest of that land? We just let it go back to nature. It's called, the phenomenon is called rewilding. And what would happen? Yes, we've cleared the forest, but the trees that are still left on the forest remnants, the trees put down their acorns and seeds at the edge of the forest, and so the forest starts growing back. And as trees grow, they take carbon dioxide out of the air and turn it into solid wood. I shake my head when I see these multi-billion-dollar carbon capture machines or whatever. Mother Nature came up with the best carbon capture technology ever. They're called trees. And they grow by themselves. So seriously, if we let the trees, all we have to do is go to a plant-based diet and let the forest come back. And it would take carbon dioxide out of the air, reverse global warming. Everything would get better. The climate would stabilize, the soils would stop eroding, the rivers would run clean again, the animal slaughter would stop. Pick a problem and we would watch it get better. Similar, it's so analogous in the body. Stop running meat and dairy through the body, and these medical diseases get better. Well, stop cutting down the forest to grow animal flesh, and the planet will heal as well. They're exactly parallel. So you say the key to sustainability, it comes down, the final common pathway, as we learn in biochemistry, is a plant-based diet, and it would solve everything. And it's so frightening to say, oh, what's going to happen to my steak? Well, now the plant-based meats are getting better and better, but it's such a silly thing to ruin your health and your ecological future. And it's over. And it's one of my hopes. People say, what gives me hope? The only things I can hang my hat on are young people in the internet. And we've got to get the message to the young folks who are rightfully scared about their ecological future. What's going to happen to your children? What the Earth's going to be like for their future if we don't change things. And we got to get the message that that burger that they love eating at, pick a fast food outlet. What's driving your ecological disaster. It's not cool. Stop eating that stuff. If we get that message out, everything will change. And it could be done. When America wants to change a message here, they can. It should be on highway billboards. It should be on TV commercials and PSAs every 30 minutes. And the sports stars ought to be saying, "I went plant-based," and Lady Gaga and the music folks. They should all be saying, "Change to plant-based nutrition," and we would change. It's doable. But again, people like you are at the forefront, so I'm so appreciative we're doing this interview.
And I know that a lot of people listening are probably on this path as well, and we're all just looking for ways that we can support this message, because I always caution myself against anything that sounds too easy. If it sounds too easy, if it's like this blanket statement, this is going to solve everything. Examine that, but this is certainly not that. As easy as you made it sound, it's incredibly difficult, of course, the example that you shared was everybody becomes plant-based tomorrow, and now we have land the size of Africa, and all of a sudden trees are going to appear. I mean, there's a lot of things that have to happen for this to occur, and it's going to take quite a long time, I would imagine. And so what do you think, knowing that would be the most impactful thing that somebody like me and anybody listening could do to try and make this shift happen as quickly and as most impactfully as possible?
Oh my, that's the question of the day, especially for people in the health professions like you and me. Um, Everybody can do something. Most important thing, set a good example. Do it yourself, first and foremost, and do it with power and pride and conviction. And um, I have some emergency room doctor friends who as they are seeing their patients leave the ER, on the back of their business card, there are websites, forks over knives, and videos to see, and books to read, and websites to visit. And they say, if you don't want to come back here, check out these websites here, and there's a QR code that takes them to a handout on healthy plant-based eating. So even the ER doctor, then I've got an anesthesiologist friend that does it similar. So, get the message out as soon as in any way you can. I have family physician doctors who have run a standard family practice, but in the evenings, they've got a big waiting area in their clinical office. They set up card tables, and they plug in blenders and hot plates, and they give plant-based cooking. Here's how you make rice. Here's how you make oatmeal. Here's how you make salad dressings. And it's all about education. So setting the example certainly is key, and educating our colleagues. The There is someone said, when you rightfully pointed out this is a huge undertaking. What about the farmers and the ranchers who are growing all this feed corn and the cattle? And well, no one wants to kick them off the land. They're growing our food, but help them do something else with the land. You don't have to have a dairy operation. You can do something else with the land. You can grow fruit trees. You can grow broccoli. You can grow industrial hemp. You can pay them to let the forest come back. Help them do something else with the land. And there's an organization in Washington called the Agricultural Fairness Alliance, the AFA, who's working as a lobby to help legislation get passed to help these people. Don't grind them up in the economic gears. Help them uh, transition to do something else with their land. Send them to community college, learn how to grow a different crop, buy their seeds for them, buy their equipment for them, give them crop insurance for 10 years, pay the mortgage on their house for 10 years, send their kids to college, put internet in their house, help these people. It's just money. Let's build two fewer aircraft carriers and use that $60 billion to fund the Farmers and Ranchers Transition Administration and help these people do something else with their land. It's doable. We're Americans. We can do anything. And so there's lots can be done. And again, support the AFA, on any level you can. Educate yourself, set a good example in your local area, put on potlucks, pass out flyers at local movies or whatever. Find a way, where there's a will, there's a way. So get the will, and we'll find a way there.
That is incredible. And you actually shared a lot of ways that people can get involved in. Just like I work with my patients in nutrition, it's about finding what resonates with you and work on that first. Whatever you are going to do is going to be the most impactful thing. So I think that applies here too. Whatever resonates with you, whatever you are able and willing and excited to do, dive in there, and anything is a step in the right direction, because it is certainly an uphill battle that we face here. So with that being said, we still have a handful of audience Q&A. I only have you for another less than 10 minutes, so we're going to do a speed round of this Q&A.
Okay.
So let's start first with a question from Ashley, who asks, so how much is genetics involved versus nutrition? Because you shared a little bit about how, earlier on in the conversation, there was a lot of fear that just all these chronic conditions were so genetic based that lifestyle might not have a play. So what is your thoughts on genetics versus lifestyle?
Genetics certainly plays a role. I can't minimize that. But when I went to medical school, when I was a boy, it was taught your genes are set in stone, and they foretell your biological future. There's nothing you can do about it. Well, now that's all that card table's been upset here, because we now understand that genes are not these static blueprints here. They are living, vital entities that turn on and turn off depending on what is flowing through the cell, the phenomenon of epigenetics. And these genes call forth enzymes in every meal we eat. some molecules in that meal are flowing within minutes through every cell in our body. They wash over our DNA. They play our DNA strands like a piano, and they turn genes on, they turn genes off. They induce enzymes, they shut enzymes down. Every meal brings in not only nutrients, it brings in information, and it changes us on a genetic molecular level. And so uh, a plant, the genes that are going to be turned on by a broiled steak and greasy French fries are a whole different set of genes than those that are being turned on by a fresh salad and a helping of rice and beans. They turn on totally different set of enzymes, and it changes us on the inside. So turn on those plant-based genes and the genetics, which is important, but instead of being everything, it's this much, you got to honor it. But again, optimize it to the best you can with the foods you're running through those cells, and the genetics will start working in your favor.
Beautiful. We could do a whole chat about epigenetics because that's a fun one, and we probably will. That was a nice reminder. So, great question from, I believe this is actually Dr. Sharon Barrett. How can we get a whole food plant-based doctor into the Make America Healthy Again program?
Oh my. That's a challenge, and I've had the same thoughts, and I'm working with some friends who know Mr. Kennedy, and we are trying to make inroads there. We've got a challenge. It seems like the folks from the Joe Rogan carnivore camp already has Mr. Kennedy's ear, and so it's the time for the red meat bro culture that oh, those plant eaters are wusses, and so there's a lot of resistance. But I wish them all long, healthy lives. But their arteries don't care. Your microbiome doesn't care what your politics are. Your body is looking for a plant-based food stream, and they're going to have to change their orientation when the rate of strokes and bowel cancers, which are already going up through the roof. We're seeing strokes in younger people, seeing cancers in younger people. If they're seekers of truth on any level, they're going to have to deal with that. And like the boy who said the emperor has no clothes, we have to quietly keep stating our message. But I am working with a couple of people who know Mr. Kennedy, and we're trying to get an audience with them and see if we can make some inroads to turning their intellectual constructs into at least opening to the importance of plant-based nutrition. Got a lot of work to do on that scale. And if anyone has any entree into Mr. Kennedy and his ilk, please get in touch with me. We'd like to exploit that to the greatest extent possible.
Absolutely. And I am certainly cheering you on. And I know a lot of other listeners are too. I'm going to jump to this question that I think kind of ties nicely into that question, as well as our conversation about plant-based diets and how our body was essentially set up to digest plant-based diets and consume plant-based diets. Because there's a lot of the carnivores out there, carnivore diet supporters out there, and those who have tried more of those carnivore type diets that say, oh, my digestive system it just feels better. Everything, I feel like my body is designed to eat this way. What would you say to somebody who says that plant-based high fiber diets are very uncomfortable for them? That's from Michelle. Thank you.
Absolutely. These are people who have made a very dramatic transition in their dietary stream very quickly. And they've gone from a low fiber American diet with white bread and hamburger buns and milkshakes, etc., into the high fiber diet especially with legume protein, which is more of a digestive challenge. It has to be chewed more thoroughly, but also the microbiome organisms need time to transition. And these folks will eat, huge salads and bowls of bean chili, and they get bloated and they get gassy, and oh, this doesn't work for me, doesn't work for me. But here's where the dietitians have such an important role to play to help these people understand that for many people, you've got to make this transition more gradually. You have to chew your food to a cream, break down those fibers in your mouth as much as you can. Even if you have to do blended salads and blended soups if you need to, but reduce the fiber load to start with, and maybe just 1 tablespoon of beans or lentils of legumes onto your salad. And start with that for a week, and then maybe 2 tablespoons. Every week, increase it a little bit. Uh, if you're a pilot, I used to fly airplanes, and when you're gaining altitude, you don't pull back on the yoke and point the nose up, you'll stall out. And the same thing, if you've got an old car at the stoplight and it turns green, you don't jam that accelerator to the floor. Easy does it. And this transition often has to be made more artfully and gradually, and that's where dietitians can play such an important role uh, to uh, to get a successful transition. And many of these folks also um, have lost the train of thought there. Oh, right. As they made this transition to a carnivore diet, they've stopped eating stuff that's really bad for them. They stopped eating the white bread buns and they stopped eating the dairy products or whatever, which I agree with. And that's going to make you feel better. But it's not because of all the meat you're eating, it's all the other junk that you're not eating anymore. That's really caused most of the improvements there. So, a subtle but very important field to work in with people like you.
Absolutely. And thank you for that clarity. And it's true because a lot of the research right now in nutrition is saying, especially for weight loss specifically, just looking at weight loss is, any diet is going to be better than the standard American diet. You'll see some results as long as you do something, which just goes to show how bad the standard American diet is. But also that any small change, even if it's not quote unquote perfect, which what is these days, but even if it's not, it's going to be a step in the right direction. And certainly that gold standard is going to be that plant-based diet. But that brings me to my second to last question from the audience here, which is, what about one-time or infrequent meat consumption? What are your thoughts on that? Should the gold standard be fully 100% vegan, or is there room for flexibility?
Right. As you say, we are human beings. We're doing the best we can, and you can't let the perfect be the enemy of the good. And I'd rather people eat a small portion of animal flesh twice a week than 3 times a day, like they're doing now. And so, absolutely, that's a huge improvement. And I'm not going to wag my finger if someone is continuing to do that long term there. Um, does it make a difference? Small but real. I mean, their microbiome organism is going to be a little different as that meat goes through. It's going to summon up different organisms than if it was a completely plant-based food stream. Your body's never not looking. It knows what you're eating there. Your gut knows, your arteries know, your liver knows. But a small piece of meat once or twice a week probably is not going to nullify the benefits of the whole food plant-based food stream, which should always be there. In other words, you should be eating a whole food plant-based food stream with all the meals. But if twice a week you want to put in a little piece of animal flesh, okay. But for cultural or taste reasons, and some people have a dependency on carnitine or whatever, they need to slowly taper off. Fine with me. So again, less is more and none is best when it comes to meat.
Beautiful. Okay, great. So, final question for you is, what gives you hope right now?
What gives me hope is you and the education that's happening around the world with interviews like this, with work that you're doing with reputable scientists like Dr. Longo, adding their credibility with good, solid research, the and the truth, as the environmental threats loom larger and larger, and people are starting to look more and more desperate for truth. The reality of plant-based nutrition as a hope for the ecological future gets brighter and brighter, and young people and the internet and their ability to change. And I often scoffed as that and shook my head at their disregard. They have no knowledge of history, but in a way, maybe that's a benefit. They aren't tied to the past concepts. What works now is the only thing that matters for these young folks, and what works is a plant-based diet, and the truth of that will eventually emerge and manifest fully in their lives and in all their lives, and we'll all benefit for that.
Amen. And that thank you to me, I'm going to pass that right on to everyone listening today because, this would only go so far if it went to absolutely nobody and to deaf ears. So thank you to everybody who has joined and who has listened to Dr. Klaper and I today. It has been such a pleasure to have you here, Dr. Klaper. Would you please share with us one last time where people can find more information about all of the incredible work that you're doing?
Yes, please go to our website for Moving Medicine Forward, and the website, the web address is movingmedforward.org, movingmedforward.org. See us there and help us out because we could sure use the help, and you'll help us get this word out to all the young doctors who need to hear it.
Fantastic. And thank you everybody for joining. Please do visit Dr. Klaper. And we will be back here. As always, we're here twice a month. Our upcoming episode is with Dr. Felice Gersh on women's health, and then with Dr. Wiss on mental health and nutrition. So lots of really great content to come. Thank you one final time, Dr. Klaper, and thank you all for joining. Have a great day.
Bye-bye.